Oi, tudo bom? Bom, hoje eu trouxe um vídeo um pouco fora da minha zona de conforto. Eu resolvi ler um livro aqui com vocês, mas em inglês. Eu queria muito fazer um ASMR em inglês, porque eu acho que é a língua que mais me dá sono quando eu assisto ASMR, mesmo às vezes não entendendo grande parte. E como eu ficaria com um pouco de vergonha de fazer um ASMR em inglês, eu achei melhor fazer uma leitura em inglês de um livro que eu tenho aqui. Esse livro eu li na época da escola, no meu curso, na aula de inglês. O nome é A Lion Called Christian. E eu vou pedir pra que vocês não liguem pra minha pronúncia, tá? Se eu falar alguma coisa errada, só tô fazendo pra vocês relaxarem. Então vamos lá. Ele vem no plastiquinho. E eu guardo ele aqui porque ele vem com um CD. Um CD aqui na parte de trás, que fica solto. Esse CD, eu acho que é a leitura do livro. Mas aqui tá dizendo capítulo 7. Então não sei se é só de um capítulo. Então vamos pra leitura. É um livro bem curtinho. Eu acho que eu vou ler 1 ou 2 capítulos com vocês. Mas não sei se vocês vão entender muito comigo lendo, então talvez vocês nem fiquem curiosos com o resto da história. E se vocês quiserem que eu leia o resto dos capítulos, deixe aqui embaixo nos comentários que eu trago outro vídeo lendo a continuação. Ele tem algumas fotos, porque ele é baseado em fatos reais. Então vamos lá. In August 1969, 4 lion cubs were born in a small zoo in the southwest of England. There were 3 females and a male. Their father, Butch, came from Rotterdam Zoo in Netherlands, and their mother, Mary, from a zoo in Jerusalem, Israel. In October, when the summer was over and the tourists had gone, the cubs were sold. 2 of the females were bought by a circus. The other female and the male were bought by Harrods, a very famous department store in London. E aí vem a foto de Harrods. Essa latinha aqui. Three months earlier, in May 1969, 2 young Australian men, Anthony Ace Burke and John Randall, had left Australia for the first time. They had finished university and had done a number of jobs. After traveling on their own around Europe in search of adventure, Ace and John met up again in London. They visited the usual tourist attractions, like the Tower of London, and then, one day, they went to Harrods. Harrods was a very special department store. The owners of Harrods used to proudly say that the store offered all things for all people everywhere. At the time, there was even a zoo in the shop. Ace and John wanted to see if they really could buy anything in Harrods. They went to the zoo on the second floor to see the animals for sale. And there, in a small cage between the cats and the dogs, they saw the 2 lion cubs. The female cub seemed bad-tempered and showed her teeth to shoppers who stopped to look at her. Her brother seemed quite easygoing. He didn't pay attention to anybody. Ace and John immediately fell in love with him. They sat down beside the cage and stayed there for hours. "I've already named him Christian," said Ace. Ace and John both laughed. It wouldn't be amusing to call a lion Christian. It reminded them of Roman history, when Christians were true to the lions. "Why don't we buy him?" asked John. They asked if the cub was still for sale. Yes, he was. They were told at a price of 275 euros. At the time, it was a lot of money, but the price didn't stop Ace and John. They really wanted to buy the lion cub. But first, the manager of Harrods Zoo department wanted to interview them. He wanted to make sure they would be good lions owners. So the next day, Ace and John got out their smart jackets. Luckily, their parents had made them take the jackets with them to Europe. Up to now, they had never been worn. Then, they carefully combed their hair and went back to Harrods. Luckily, their interview went well, and the zoo manager liked them. But their problems were only just beginning. Ace and John shared a small flat above a furniture shop called Sophisticated in the King's Road in Chelsea. This part of Chelsea was called World's End. The name came from the 17th century in the days of King Charles II, when this area was right at the end of the city. Now, the area at the end of the King's Road was becoming very fashionable. Ace and John had to wait 3 weeks before they could take Kristen home, so they only had a short time to find a large flat. What they really needed was a big basement flat with a garden. They didn't want to tell flat owners that they had a lion, so they say they were looking for a flat for themselves and their dog. Aqui vem uma fotinha da King's Road in Chelsea. In the end, when they couldn't find a suitable flat, they put an advertisement in the Times newspaper. Lion cub, 2 young men, need suitable garden or roof, flat or house, London. However, the only calls they received were from newspapers who were interested in take photos of the lion cub. Nobody called to offer them a flat to live in. In the end, the owners of Sophisticated agreed to let Christian live in the large basement under the shop. The basement had several rooms, so there was plenty of space for Christian to move around. Ace and John, the sophisticated cat, was very suitable a dress for a lion, the biggest cat of all. But they still had to find a garden for Christian to exercise in. Finally, they were told that they could use a large church garden close to their flat. Now they were ready to receive Christian, but they still had one problem. Neither of them knew anything about lions. They had no idea how to look after a lion. Would they be able to do it? They went to Harold's as often as they could to play with the cubs for an hour after close time. They wanted to get to know Christian and to let him get to know them. The cubs had extremely sharp teeth and claws. Ace and John hoped that Christian would play more quietly when he was away from his sister. They also went to visit some people who had bought a puma from Harold's the year before. The puma, called Margot, seemed quite relaxed, and Ace and John felt a bit more confident about looking after Christian. They knew, however, that Christian would only be able to live with them for about 6 months. After that, he would be too big for the basement. They had to think about possibilities for him when he was fully grown. They certainly didn't want to send him back to a zoo. They knew of a place in the south of England called Longleat Safari Park. Longleat was the first safari park to open outside Africa. Animals were not kept in cages. Instead, they were allowed to move around the large park. The lions at Longleat seemed to have a large amount of freedom. Ace and John went to visit Longleat and talked to the director. "Don't worry," said the director. "We'll take Christian when he gets too big for you to keep." So everything was arranged, even Christian's future. But Ace and John still had doubts. Christian was a powerful wild animal. He could be very dangerous. Their parents were worried and told them to think about it very carefully. They said that Ace and John could become attached to Christian and they might find it difficult to give him up. A lot of people told them they were stupid or crazy. In the end, all the different opinions only made Ace and John's decision easier. They were young and they were looking for fun and adventure. It was the end of 1960s and the beginning of the 1970s, a time of optimism and change. They would buy a lion and live with him in London. On 15th December 1969, there was a phone call from Harold's. The cubs had escaped during the night. They had done some damage in the store. Harold's wanted to get rid of Christian and his sister as soon as possible. "Right, we'll be there tomorrow," Ace and John said. Well, chegamos no capítulo 2. E eu acho que eu vou ler um capítulo por vídeo. E se vocês gostarem, eu volto com o capítulo 2. Vou tentar ser mais rápida no próximo vídeo pra tentar ler 2 capítulos. tenham gostado da leitura. Tem ideias de mais vídeos que vocês queiram aqui embaixo. Eu anoto tudo que vocês escrevem nos comentários.